Vashishta is one of the most famous rishis of our Hindu traditions. Originally born as a son of Brahma during the creation of the universe, he was reborn twice in different ways. Each of his births has a different story behind it. He was also famous in Hindu mythology for his enmity with Vishwamitra and many encounters that occurred between them. The story of the birth of Vashishta is written in the Shiva Purana Rudra Samhita in chapter 2. Long ago, during the creation of the universe, Lord Brahma created various beings to assist him with his creation and to populate the universe. Brahma created 10 Manasaputras, that is, the sons born through mind: Marichi, Atri, Palahu, Pulatsya, Angirasa, Kratu, Narada, Daksha, Brigu, and Vashishta were the 10. Each of these sons were born from a different part of Brahma's body. Vashishta was created from the prana, that is the breath of Lord Brahma. After that, a beautiful lady sprung from Brahma's mind. On seeing her, Vashishta, his ninth brother, and his father all got up, enamored by the angelic women. However, at the moment, another man sprung from Brahma's mind. Vashishta and other Manasaputras named the man as Kama, the god of love, and the woman was named as Sandhya. After Brahma had finished his creation, Kama decided to test his power of love. He shot his arrows of love at Brahma, the Manasaputras, and Sandhya. They started frequently staring at Sandhya. Brahma and Vashishta and his 9 brothers were completely overpowered by lust. Sandhya too started indicating her feelings from them with occasional glances. On seeing his brothers and father attracted to Sandhya, Dharma, another son of Brahma, prayed to Lord Vishnu for help. Lord Shiva appeared there and scolded Brahma and his sons for their indecent behavior. Out of embarrassment for their actions, Vashishta and the others began sweating. From their sweat, different Pitras, that is, the ancestors, were born. From Vashishta's sweat, the Kalin clan of Pitras were born. Brahma was enraged at Kama and cursed him, but then blessed him. After this incident, Vashishta and the others went to their respective abodes. Meanwhile, Sandhya too came out of her trance and felt severely guilty for her actions. She decided that she would engage in penance to atone for her sins, and then she would kill herself. Sandhya went to the Chandrabhaga mountain and began a sure penance. Soon, Brahma came to know of Sandhya's plans to end her life. Brahma approached Vashishta and said that Sandhya is currently performing penance at Chandrabhaga and she wishes to atone for her sins after what happened with Kama. So he requested Vashishta to go and teach her how to properly perform penance. Vashishta obeyed his father and journeyed to the Chandrabhaga mountain. He assumed a disguise and respectfully approached Sandhya, who was immersed in penance. Sandhya opened her eyes and addressed the sage, asking for instructions on how to do penance and how to please Lord Shiva. Vashishta taught her the mantras to propitiate Shiva. He demonstrated the various rites of penance and then vanished from the spot. So Sandhya began her penance and it continued for 4 yugas. Finally, Lord Shiva appeared before her saying, "I am very pleased with your penance. You can choose whichever boon you desire." So Sandhya said, "For my first boon, I desire that no living being is born with lust. This is what happened to me, and I don't want that to happen again. For my second boon, I desire that no woman becomes more famous than me. Let me have the greatest husband, and any other man that looks at me lustfully will become weak. From now on, there will be 4 stages of life: infancy, childhood, youth, and old age. Humans can only become lustful after the childhood stage. They cannot be lustful at birth. As per your second wish, you will have a famous husband who will live for 7 kalpas. I know that you want to kill yourself after obtaining these boons, but you must enter the fire at the yajna of Medhartiti's rishi. That way, you will become his daughter in your next birth. If you have chosen your husband for your next birth, make sure to remember him before you enter the fire." Saying this, Shiva vanished. As per Shiva's instruction, Sandhya reached Medhartiti's yajna and entered the fire. As she immolated herself, she remembered Vashishta and wished that he became her husband in her next life. When Medhartiti's long sacrifice finally concluded, an infant girl emerged from the sacrificial fire. He was overjoyed and adopted the girl as his daughter, naming her Arundhati, which means the one who does not hinder sacred rites. Years passed and Arundhati grew up under her father's care and became a beautiful young woman. One day, Vashishta encountered Arundhati in the forest. He instantly fell in love with her, and she fell for him as well. They expressed their feelings for each other and they were married in a grand ceremony. Vashishta and Arundhati had 7 sons named Chitraketu, Porochir, Viricha, Mitra, Ulbana, Pasubhradayana, and Dhrumayana. When Daksha conducted a grand yajna and invited all the devas, rishis, and other important people in the universe, among the guests were Vashishta and Arundhati. However, because of Daksha and Shiva's enmity, Shiva and Sati were not invited to the yajna. Sati was enraged and she went to the yajna site. She committed suicide in the sacrificial fire. Hearing this, the furious Lord Shiva created a monster spirit. Virabhadra and Kali ravaged the yajna and killed many of its guests. However, Vashishta and Arundhati were spared from the wrath of the spirits. Later, after the yajna was completed, Shiva appeared and said that Vashishta, Atri, Pulatsya, Angiras, Palahu, Kratu, Brigu and Marichi would be reborn in Chakshuna Manavatara. At the end of the first Manavatara, the Swayambhava Manavatara, they all were transported to Janaloka, the heavenly realm of sages. Vashishta and the others remained at Janaloka for many Manavataras. Finally, at the end of the Chakshuka Manavatara, Varuna performed. At the end of the first Manavatara, Vashishta, Atri, Pulatsya, Angiras, Pulahu, Kratu, Brigu and Marichi passed away. They were transported to Janaloka, the heavenly realm of sages. Vashishta and the others remained at Janaloka for many massive years. Finally, at the end of the Chakshusha Manavatara, Varuna performed a massive Brahma Yajna. He invited all the eminent devas and the rishis. During the yajna, Brahma fell in love with some damsels, causing his semen to be discharged. Brahma put it in its sacrificial fire. One by one, all the 8 sages who died were reborn from the fire. Thus, Lord Shiva's words had come true. Vashishta again grew up and became a renowned sage across Bharatavarsha. He married Aksamala, an incarnation of Arundhati. King Nimi, the ruler of Videha, appointed Vashishta as his guru and royal priest. Nimi was a prosperous king who loved his subjects, and the subjects loved him. One day, King Nimi decided to perform a 5,000-year-long yajna to increase his fame. He invited all the famous Brahmins and sages. Nimi then approached Vashishta and said, I am performing a yajna, Guru. Since you are my Guru, please perform this yajna for me. It will last 5,000 years and I will please Ambika Devi. However, for this Vashishta responded that Indra is also performing a yajna right now for 500 years. He has already asked me to perform his yajna. You will have to wait until I finish Indra's yajna. Wait until then. After I finish, I will come here, said Vashishta. King Nimi grew agitated. He had already invited all the guests and he made all the preparations and arrangements. And he was delayed for 500 years because of Vashishta. He implored that Vashishta has to forget about Indra's yajna and do his yajna instead. However, Vashishta refused and left the palace. He journeyed to Swarga and began Indra's yajna. Meanwhile, instead of waiting, Nimi decided to start the yajna with Gautama Rishi instead of Vashishta. After 500 years, Vashishta completed Indra's yajna and immediately went to Nimi's palace. However, when he entered the palace grounds, he saw the yajna being performed by someone else. Vashishta was enraged by the king's behavior. He confronted Nimi and cursed him and said that he was his guru and he abandoned him and appointed someone else for the yajna. He cursed that his body will be destroyed today. Hearing Vashishta's words, Nimi stated, You are my Yajamana, and it is your duty as a Brahmin to perform my yajna for me. Yet, you choose somebody else over me, and now you are blaming me for your sins. You are cursing me when I have done nothing wrong. Since you have cursed me for nothing, I curse that your body will be destroyed today too. Saying this, Nimi retaliated. Vashishta didn't know what to do. After a couple of hours, he would become bodiless. Only his soul would remain. A desperate Vashishta approached his father Brahma for help. He narrated what had happened between him and King Nimi and asked for help. Brahma said that he should enter the bodies of Mitra and Varuna and told him to stay there and soon he will be reborn. Vashishta bowed down and went to Varun Loka. His body soon left him and his soul entered the bodies of Mitra and Varuna. Vashishta's third birth. Once, the heavenly Apsara Urvashi went to Varun Loka with her friends. When Mitra and Varuna saw Urvashi, they immediately fell for her. They said, "Seeing your beauty and your grace, we have fallen in love with you. Please stay here with us." Urvashi agreed to live with them. As Urvashi stayed with Mitra and Varuna, they became excited and their semen dropped in an uncovered jar. Because of this, 2 children were born. The first was Akatsya, who became a famous ascetic and devoted his life to penance. The second was Vashishta, who was adopted by King Ikshvaku. King Ikshvaku knew that the child was none other than Vashishta, so he raised him with love and care. Vashishta grew up for the third and final time. He once again became very learned and became the family priest of the Solar dynasty. He again married Arundhati, who had been reborn as the daughter of Kashyapa Rishi and the sister of Narada and Parvata. They had 100 sons, the oldest of whom was Shakti Rishi. King Vishwamitra of Kanya Kubja once set out into the forest for a hunting expedition. His massive army and his sons came with him. After hours of hunting, the entire group reached the hermitage of Vashishta Rishi. Vashishta cordially welcomed them and invited them, saying, "Please go for a bath. When you return, I will have food ready for you all." Vishwamitra and his army went for a quick bath. When they returned, they were shocked to see a grand feast in front of them. They wondered how Vashishta had prepared so much food in such a short time. After enjoying the lavish feast, Vishwamitra asked Vashishta, "Rishi, where did you get all this food from?" He said it came from his cow Kamadhenu. Vashishta replied, "Kamadhenu is capable of granting you anything you want. I asked for a feast and a feast appeared." Vishwamitra stayed silent. If that cow was so special, why did it belong to this forest-dwelling sage? It should belong to him, a powerful king. He had his eyes set on the cow since then. He asked for the cow and said that this cow should belong to him and Vishwamitra should give 100,000 ordinary cows in exchange for Kamadhenu. Vashishta refused and said he would never part with Kamadhenu. Vishwamitra upped the reward to 10 million cows. They started arguing over this. In a fury, Vishwamitra ordered his men to capture the cow. Kamadhenu tossed aside the soldiers and fled to Vashishta. The cow said, "Oh Lord, why aren't you helping me? I am in trouble." Kamadhenu said to Vashishta, "Dear Kamadhenu, I can't do anything against the vast armies of Vishwamitra," Vashishta said sadly. "Then I will create warriors to fight his armies using your spiritual power," Kamadhenu said. Hence, hundreds of Pahalava warriors sprung forth from Kamadhenu's body. They rushed at Vishwamitra's vast army and completely destroyed them. Vishwamitra watched in horror as his army was reduced to nothing. He trembled with rage, started slaughtering the Pahalva warriors. In her response, Kamadhenu created other warriors. The Kambojas emerged from her mouth. The Shakayaravanas came from her udders. Kiratakas, Haritas, and Mlechas soldiers came out of her pores. The sons of Vishwamitra fiercely rushed at the army of warriors. Vashishta uttered one syllable and they all turned into ashes. This was the immense yogic power of Vashishta. Vishwamitra was now utterly defeated and he dejectedly returned to Kanya-Kuboja. Vishwamitra gave the throne to his only remaining son. He then retired to the Himalayas and began intense austerities and penance. At last, Lord Shiva was pleased and appeared in front of Vishwamitra. Eager to take revenge, Vishwamitra asked for the knowledge of all the weapons, and Shiva granted the boon and then vanished. Vishwamitra now set off to Vashishta's hermitage to avenge his sons. As soon as he reached the hermitage, he set it on flames using his newly acquired weapons and powers. Everybody residing in the hermitage ran panicked in terror. Vashishta came out and challenged Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra started throwing weapons after weapons at Vashishta, but they were all absorbed by Vashishta's Brahma burden. Finally, Vishwamitra evoked the Brahmastra, the most powerful weapon in the universe. However, even this was consumed by Vashishta's burden. Realizing that his weapons would do nothing against Vashishta's spiritual power, Vishwamitra decided to commit his life to penance. So he determined to become a Brahma Rishi and began astral penance in the south. Vishwamitra had a long journey to become a Brahma Rishi, with many obstacles in the way and numerous and other encounters with Vashishta and Vashishta's sons. In the end, Vishwamitra became a Brahma Rishi and Vashishta accepted him as a Brahma Rishi.